So, climate. We all live in it. I'm sure we all like it. Plus, we need it. By definition, climate is the weather conditions prevailing in an area in general or over a long period of time. I'm here to discuss the current top 10 climate change myths. The first climate myth is that climate's changed before. The myth states that climate has always been changing, and we have had ice ages and warmer periods. In fact, ice ages have occurred in a 100,000-year cycle for the last 700,000 years. There have been previous periods that have been warmer than the present, despite CO2 levels being lower than they are now. This myth is wrong for two reasons. First, to infer that humans can't be behind today's climate change just because it's changed before is bad reasoning. Humans are changing the climate today mainly via greenhouse gas emissions, the same mechanism that caused climate change before humans. Second, to imply we have nothing to fear from today's climate change is not borne out by the lessons from rapid climate changes in the Earth's past. Climate change myth number 2, it's the sun. Over the past few hundred years, there has been a steady increase in the number of sunspots. At the time, the Earth has been getting warmer. The data suggests solar activity is influencing the global climate by causing the world to get warmer. This myth is just a myth because over the last 35 years, the sun has shown a cooling trend. However, global temperatures continue to increase. If the sun's energy is decreasing while the Earth is warming, then the sun can't be the main control of the temperature. Myth number 3, it's not bad. 2,000 years of published human histories say that warm periods were good for people. It was the harsh, unstable Dark Ages and Little Ice Age that brought bigger storms, ultimately frost, widespread famine, and plagues of disease. Looking at the positives and negatives, there are definitely more negatives. Some of the topics that are shown are agriculture, health, Arctic melt, environment, ocean acidification, glacier melt, economical, and sea level rise. Climate change myth number 4, there is no consensus. The petition project features over 31,000 scientists signing the petition stating there is no convincing scientific evidence that human release of carbon dioxide will, in the foreseeable future, cause catastrophic heating of the Earth's atmosphere. This myth is wrong because expert consensus is a powerful thing. People know that we don't have the time or capacity to learn about everything, and so we frequently defer to conclusions of experts. It's why we visit the doctors when we're ill. The same is true of climate change. Most people defer to the expert consensus of climate scientists. A quote states, "Public perception of the scientific consensus has been found to be a gateway belief affecting other climate beliefs and attitudes, including policy support." Myth number 5, it's cooling. In fact, global warming has stopped and a cooling is beginning. No climate model has predicted a cooling of the Earth, and this means the projections of the future climate are unreliable. This myth isn't true, because the question on global warming stopping is often raised in the light of recent weather events. A big snowfall or a drought-breaking rain. Global warming is entirely compatible with these events. After all, it's just weather. For climate change, it's the long-term trends that are important, measured over decades or more. And those long-term trends show that the globe is still unfortunately warming. Myth number 6. Models are unreliable. Models are full-fledged factors that are fitted to the existing climates, so the models more or less agree with observed data. But there is no reason to believe that the same fudge factors give the right behavior in a world with different chemistry. For example, in a world with increased CO2 in the atmosphere. This is not true. Climate models are mathematical representations of the interactions between the atmosphere, oceans, land surface, ice, and the sun. This is clearly a very complex task, so models are built to estimate trends rather than events. For example, a climate model can tell you it will be cold in the winter, but not the exact temperature it will be on a specific day. That's weather forecasting. Climate trends are weather, averaged out over time, usually 30 years. Trends are important because they eliminate or smooth out single events that may be extreme but quite rare. Myth number 7. Temperature record is unreliable. A quote from the Myth's website is, "In fact, we have found that 89% of stations fail to meet the National Weather Service's own siting requirements that stations must be 30 meters or more away from an artificial heating or radiating heat source." My rebuttal to this myth is, temperature data is essential for predicting the weather. So, the US National Weather Service and every other weather service around the world wants temperatures to be measured as accurately as possible. To understand climate change, we also need to be sure that we can trust historical measurements. A group called the International Service Temperature Initiative is dedicated to making global land temperature data available in a transparent manner. Also, as technology gets better, stations are updated with newer equipment. When equipment is updated or stations are moved, the new data is compared to the old record to be sure measurements are consistent over time. Myth number 8. Animals and plants can adapt. The myth reads, corals, trees, birds, mammals, and butterflies are adapting well to the routine reality of changing climate. This isn't true. A large number of ancient mass extinction events have indeed been strongly linked to global climate change. Myth number 9. It hasn't warmed since 1998. For the years 1998 to 2005, temperature did not increase. This period coincides with society's continued pumping of more CO2 in the atmosphere. This is wrong, because even if we ignore the long-term trends and just look at the record breakers, 2015, 2014, 2010, and 2005 were all hotter than 1998. The myth of no warming since 1998 was based on the satellite record estimates of the temperature of the atmosphere. In fact, satellites even show warming since 1998. And finally, myth number 10. Antarctica is gaining ice. The myth is, ice is expanding in much of Antarctica, contrary to the widespread public belief that global warming is melting the continental ice cap. This is not true, because even though at times, the amount of ice lost is more than the amount of ice formed. Therefore, an annual loss of ice. I hope you all learned, maybe not to trust things you find online, because they may not be true. Some simple fact checking can prove those things wrong.